Hello, welcome back to another AP3 video, and in today's video we'll be going over SAT math questions, more specifically systems of two linear equations and two variables. We're going to be doing easy, medium, and hard questions that pop up on the SAT, so without further ado, let's get started. So I'm given two equations, 5x equals 15 and negative 4x plus y equals negative 2. And those two equations, and we're looking for the solution to the given system of equations is x and y. What is the value of x plus y? So I'm given two equations, like I said. 5x equals 15 and negative 4x plus y equals negative 2. So let me rewrite that to the corresponding highlighting colors that I put. So 5x equals 15, and then I have negative 4x plus y equals negative 2. And we're looking for the values of x plus y. Well, first of all, how can I look for either value? Well, what I can do is analyze the first equation, right? I'm given 5x equals 15. What I can do is easily solve for x by dividing both sides by 5. And if I were to do that, the 5's cancel out on the left side, and I'm left off with x equals 15 divided by 5, which gives me x equals 3. So now I plug in 3 for x, and now I'm going to have equals 3 plus, now I need to find my y value. So what I can do to find my y value is plug in 3 to the second equation and figure out my y value. So ultimately that's going to be negative 4 multiplied by positive 3 plus y equals negative 2. Negative 4 multiplied by positive 3 gives me negative 12 plus y equals negative 2. And now I just solve for y. All I have to do is add 12 on both sides. And that's going to give me y equals 10. So then we plug that into the y value. So what we want to do now is do 3 plus 10, and that gives me 13. My answer is going to be C. But let's use Desmos to make sure that this is correct. So when you plug it in, you're going to get the points of 3 and 10. When you add it, it's obviously going to give you positive 13. So my answer is indeed C. Let's do another question. The graph of the system of linear equations is shown. What is the solution xy to the system? Okay, this question can be solved really simple, but let's analyze the graph and the information given, right? I'm given two lines, and they both intersect at exactly one point. What does that necessarily mean? In a graph, and if we see two straight lines that intersect at one point, that means that they have different slopes, and that they have exactly one solution, right? When it intersects at one point, that means it has exactly one solution that both equals both lines. What do I mean? That point exists for both lines. So let's analyze the graph. So the point that it intersects is at 3, 4. So we can write as a point of 3, 4. And now what I want to do is compare my answers that look exactly like that, which will ultimately be B. So this question, in this specific question, all you got to do is see which point is are both like lines intersecting, and it'll be 3, 4. Okay, let's do another question. In the given system of equations, A is a constant. If the system has infinitely many solutions, what is the value of A? So before I start anything with this question, let's go over what infinitely many solution means. So what does that mean exactly when it corresponds to equations? That means that both equations have the same amount. They both equal each other. So what do I mean? So for example, if I have x equals 1 and 2x equals 2, they both equal each other, because if I divide 2x equals 2 by 2, I'm gonna get the values of x equals 1, which these two are equivalent to each other. They both equal each other. Therefore, in this exact problem, I want to look for a value of A that when I plug it in, it makes both equations equal each other or equivalent, so it can be infinitely many. Infinitely many solutions basically means that both equations are equal to each other. So let's figure it out and analyze the equations given. So I'm given two equations. 2x plus 7y equals 9, and a second equation of 8x plus 28y equals A, which is what we're looking for. So let me draw the line a little bit different so you guys aren't getting confused. So that's 9. So let's see, right? Let's see the x and the y values, right? So we see 2 goes to 8, and we see that 7 converts to 28. So let's see what number multiplies to cause 8x and then for the x value, and then 28y for the y value. Let's do 8 divided by 2 and 28 divided by 7 to figure it out. If I do 8 divided by 2, that equals 4. If I do 28 divided by 7, that equals 4. Therefore, the bigger equation, or the second equation right here, so second equation and the first equation, the second equation is just a multiple of 4 from the first equation. What do I mean by that? So the second equation is just having the first equation and multiplying everything by 4. And therefore, to look for my a value, I'm going to have to do 9 multiplied by 4 to get a, which equals 36. Therefore, my answer is C. But to make sure that's correct, let's use Desmos. So the way that infinitely many works in Desmos is that they both are in exactly one line. So for example, if I do x equals 1, and then I do again 2x equals 2, you see what I mean? They're both the same line. So that's what should happen when I plug in both the first equation and second equation. So let's do that. So if I plug in 2x plus 7y equals 9, and then I do 8x plus 28y, and then equals 36. Look at that, exactly one line. Therefore, my answer for A is 36. Let's do another question. A group of 202 people went on an overnight camping trip, taking 60 tents with them. Some of the tents held 2 each, and the rest hold 4 each. Assuming that all tents were filled to capacity and every person got to sleep in a tent, exactly how many of the tents were 2-person tents? Okay, so I'm given that there was a total of 202 people, and we're given that it took 60 tents with them, right? And we're given that each tent can hold 2 people each, and the rest 4 people each. And we're looking for the value of how many people of the tents were 2 tents each. So in this specific equation, I want to make two equations to figure out what I'm looking for. So let's use the information given and figure out what can I do. Well, we're given that the total value of people is 202, and we're given that for each tent that holds 2 people, it holds 2, and for each tent that holds the rest, it's going to be 4 people. So I can make an equation that corresponds to 2x for the people that are staying in a tent that holds 2 people, plus 4y, which is the people that are staying in a tent that holds 4 people, which equals 202 people in total. And we're given that there is 60 tents in total, so I can do x plus y equals 60. X corresponds to the tent that holds 2 people, and y corresponds to the tent that holds 4 people. So now what I want to do is isolate one of the variables in the second equation. So let me do first and second. What I want to do is figure out which variable do I want to isolate to look what I'm looking for. If x is the tent that holds 2 people, I want to isolate x to figure out how many people can a tent hold with a capacity of 2 people per tent. So now let's isolate x. So how I do that? Just subtracting y on both sides, which gives me x equals 60 minus y, and now I plug that into my equation, my first equation, which ultimately will equal 2x plus 4y, and then we plug in x. I made a mistake here. We actually want to isolate y to figure it out. So it's going to be the same thing, but just reverse it. So it's going to be y equals negative x plus 60, and now we plug that in for y. So it's going to be 2x plus 4. We substitute y, which will be negative x plus 60, which equals 20. Now let's plug in all the numbers. So I'm going to have 2x, and then positive 4 multiplied by negative x is going to give me minus 4x, and then plus 240, which equals 20. So it's now combined like terms. Negative 4x plus 2x is going to give me negative 2x. And if I subtract 240 on both sides, that's going to equal negative 220. So now what I want to do is figure out my value of x. And I can do that by figuring out the information given to look for it now. So let's think about this. If I have 202 people, I have 202 people in my tent. So it'll be 202 minus 240, which will give me a number of negative 38. See, I'm making mistakes. I'm very sorry for that. So I got that because there was a total number 202 people and I had 202 minus 240. That was my mistake. So now I have negative 2x equals negative 38. And if I divide both sides by negative 2, I'm going to get x equals positive 38 divided by 2, which equals 19. Therefore, x equals 19. Therefore, there's a total of 19 tenths that can hold 2 people. Therefore, my answer is C. But let's make sure that is correct using what? Desmos. Desmos is always your best friend for these types of questions. So we'll always refresh it. So let's plug in 2x plus 4y, which equals 202. I forgot to add that. So right here, boom, 202. And we're going to have x plus y, which equals 60. And if we zoom out and see where the point that it lands exactly, we should have an x value of 18 or 19, sorry, and look at that. Therefore, my answer is C. Let's look at this question. At how many points do the graphs of the equation y equals x plus 20 and y equals 8x intersect the no x and y plane? So I'm given two equations. Y equals x plus 20 and then y equals 8x. And I'm looking for how many points do they intersect in the x and y plane. So there's a rule, and I kind of went over it in a different problem. When we have two equations and they have different slopes, that means that it always has one solution. And that means that it intersects at one point. So one solution also equals it intersects at one point. Therefore, my answer is going to be B. And if we plug it into Desmos, refresh it like always. I'm going to do y equals x plus 20. And then y equals 8x. And as we can see, if I zoom out, it intersects at exactly 1 point. Therefore, my answer is B. This is a similar question. I have y equals 2x plus 10 and y equals 2x minus 1. And we're looking for how many points the graphs of the given equations intersect in the xy plane. So what are we looking for? What is it asking for? At exactly how many points are they intersecting? Kind of like the previous question. So I'm given two equations. Y equals 2x plus 10 and y equals 2x minus 1. So let me rewrite those over here. So y equals 2x plus 10. And I'm going to have y equals 2x minus 1. So here's the difference, right? Now, do we have the same slope? Yes. So what does that mean? Because they're the same slope, I can really assume that it cannot be exactly one solution. It is only exactly one solution if it intersects at exactly 1 point. So B is going to be incorrect. And it can't be infinitely many because both sides still equal each other. We have the same slope of 2x, but if we see the right side, I have positive 10 and negative 1. So D is incorrect. So it's between A and C of 0 and exactly 1. So here's a little shortcut for this specific question. Like I said earlier, if we see, they both have the same slope. So let me plug in y into one of the equations to figure out what happens. So if I plug it in, I'm going to get 2x minus 1 equals 2x plus 10. If I subtract 2x on both sides, I'm left off with 0 minus 1 equals positive 10. And if I add 1 on both sides, I'm going to get 0 equals 11. There's no x value. And because there's no x value, this specific question has no solution. And that is something new, and this is very important. No solution basically means is that when I'm left with the number by itself in an equation, it's like 0 equals a million. And this is really important because I'm going to teach you a quick concept. If I have x equals x plus 1, I'm going to get 0 equals 1. That's no solution. If I do x equals x plus 22, I'm going to get 0 equals 22. No solution. And even if I do x equals x plus 10,000, I'm going to get 0 equals 10,000. And I'm still going to get 0 and no solution. What do I mean? When it's no solution, the constant or the constant by itself can be any number. And if we have a 0 and there's no x value, it's always no solution or 0 solutions. Therefore, my answer is A. And we can see that by plugging it in into Desmos. So if I plug in 2x plus 10 and I plug in 2x minus 1, they don't equal each other. So it has 0 solution. And it's also because it has the same slope. If they have the same slope, that means they're going up the same rate. And if they go up the same rate, they're never going to touch, right? Therefore, my answer is A. Okay, let's look at this question. It looks a little bit complicated, but I'll show you like what they mean. So the combined original price for a mirror and the vase is $60. After 25% discount to the mirror and 45% discount to the vase are applied, the combined sale price for the two items is $39. Which of the systems of equations gives the original price M in dollars of the mirror and the original price V of the dollars of the vase? So I'm given that there is a combined original price of the mirrors and the vase is $60. And I'm given that there is a 25 discount for the mirror and a 45 discount for the vases applied to give me a total new value of $39. And we're looking for the system of equations that corresponds with the information given. And as we can see, we have two equations, right? We have for all of them, let me do this in green. All of them have MV plus 60, so A, B, C, and D. But they have different values in the M's and V's that equal 39. Let's read the information carefully. We're given that there is a discount of 25% and 45%. That basically means is that if my total value of the mirror is 100% and there is a 25% discount, that means it's losing 25% of its value. So what I want to do is do 100% minus 25 to figure out the new value of the mirror. So if I do 100% minus 25%, that gives me 75%. So that is the new price of the mirror, which is 75% with the 25% discount. And if I do 45% discount for the vase, I'm gonna do this in red. I'm gonna do 100% minus 45%, which equals 55% of the new price of the vase when there's a 45% discount. So 75% is for mirror, which is M, and then 55% is for the vase V. So let's compare all the answer choices to see which one corresponds. If I look at A, I have 0.55 for M and 0.75 for V. We have those values, but it's incorrect because 55 corresponds to vase, which is V, and 75 corresponds to mirror, which is M. Therefore, A is indeed incorrect. If I look at B, I'm given points 0.45 and 0.25. Those are the discounts. Those aren't the new values. Therefore, B is incorrect. If I look at C, I'm given 0.75 M plus 0.55 V, which equals 39. It corresponds with the discounts of the new values given. Therefore, my answer of C can work. And if I look at D, I'm given 0.25 and 0.45. That corresponds to the discounts, but that will only work if there is a 75% discount and a 55% discount. Therefore, D is incorrect and C is my answer. Now let me look at this question. I'm given y equals negative 1/2 x, which equals, y equals negative 1 divided by 5x, and y equals 1 divided by 7x. The solution to the given system of equations is xy. What is the value of x? So I'm given two equations. Y equals negative 1 divided by 5x, and y equals 1 divided by 7x. I'm looking for my value of x. So what I want to do is plug in my y value to one of the equations to look for my x value. And if I do that, I'm going to get negative 1 divided by 5x, which equals 1 divided by 7x. So what I want to do or realize is the following. Because x is the same, I can either add 1/5 to the right side or subtract 1/7 to the left side. Let's just add because I think it's more convenient. So if I add 1/5 on the right side, I have nothing on the left side. So ultimately, I'm going to get the new equation of positive on the 0 equals 1 divided by 7x plus 1 divided by 5x. Oof. Which will give me a value of, if we combine like terms, that's going to be a value of 0 equals 12 divided by 35x. And if we divide that by 3, that gives me, actually we can't divide it by 3, so that is our final answer. And as we can see, I don't necessarily have a value for 0. So what I have to do to solve for x is divide everything by 35 divided by 12 on both sides to isolate x. So these cancel out over here, and then 0 multiplied by anything equals 0. So I'm left off with x equals 0. Therefore, my answer is B. Now, why did I do extra work? Well, this is why I did it, to solve for x. But there's an important key word, or like important information. Look over here, this one specifically. Notice I have 0 equals 2x values. Because I have 2x values, and when I add them, regardless if I multiply and divide the number, I'm still going to get off with 0. Therefore, if we have, let's say, x equals 0, with any number of x, fraction or non-fraction, it's always going to equal 0. Therefore, my answer will always be B in these type of situations. Okay, let's try another question. Which system of linear equations is represented in the line shown below? This is indeed Desmos, and I'll show you how to use it to solve for the specific question. So what you want to do for these type of questions is just guess and check. What do I mean? Is just get one of the equations and figure out if the x and y intercepts that's given in the graph corresponds or are very close to the estimation. If I look at my x-intercept, I have x-intercept of 8, but we want to focus on the y-intercept. If we look at my y-intercept, I have 3, 3.2, and roughly 6.4. So let's try D and make sure if those answers correspond. So I have two equations for D. I have 4x plus 10y equals 32, and then I have negative 8x minus 10y equals negative 64. So now what I want to do is make sure my x and my y intercepts correspond. So if I make y equals 0 first for both, I'm going to get 4x equals 32 and negative 8x equals negative 64. And we both are going to get x equals 8. So my x-intercept does indeed correspond. So now let's solve for y. If I make x equals 0 for the first one, I'm going to get 10y equals 32. And if we isolate y, I'm going to get y equals 32 divided by 10. And our y value equals 3.2. So whatever our y-intercepts do indeed correspond. So let me solve for my second one. If I make x equals 0, I'm going to get negative 10y equals negative 64. And if we isolate y, I'm going to get y equals negative 64 divided by negative 10, which equals y equals 6.4, positive 4, because anytime you multiply or divide two negatives, it's always going to equal positive. And it's a really good estimation to the y-intercept of the graph given. Therefore, my answer is D. But let's make sure it works in Desmos with the information that's given. So if you plug in everything, and as we can see, the graph does indeed correspond with 6.4, 3.2, and positive 8. Therefore, my answer is indeed D. So you guess and make sure that all the numbers correspond to each other. Okay, let's do this question. In the given system of equations, B is a constant. If the system has no solution, what is the value of P? So let's look at this equation. It looks pretty difficult, but in reality, it's not really that bad. So I have two equations of 3 divided by 2y minus 1/4 x equals 2 divided by 3. And I have a second equation of, and then wait, minus 3 over 2y, and I have a second equation of 1/2 x plus 3 over 2 equals py plus 9 divided by 2. So now let's move all the variables to the left side and all the numbers to the right side. If we do that on the top equation, I am going to get 6 divided by 2, or 3y, minus 1 divided by 4x equals 2 divided by 3. And then for my second equation, if I move the py to the left side and the 3 divided by 2 on the left side, I am going to get 1/2 x minus py equals 6 divided by 2, or 3. And this is why it's important from what I'm about to say or give the information. So let's analyze it, right? Let's look at our x values first. But before I do that, let's go over a certain rule that I like to go over in the SAT. And these type of questions, this very specific one, we don't need the numbers. And I'll explain why, right? Because if I have, for example, x equals x plus 1, like I just went over, I'm going to get 0 equals 1. And I had x equals x plus 2, I'm going to get 0 equals 2, therefore no solution. So what I mean, we only need our x and y values because the numbers can be any number, but if the x and y's cancel out, it's ultimately no solution. So we can rewrite to find our p value as negative 1/4 x plus 3y, and then 1/2 x minus py to look for my p value, because the numbers can be any numbers, but for our variables or our coefficients of x and y, it has to be very specific numbers. Let's analyze our x's, right? I have negative 1/4 x and 1/2 x. What I want to figure out is one number I can multiply to 1/2 x that will make it cancel out with the negative 1/4 x, which will be 1/2, because if we do 1/2 multiplied by 1/2, so 1/2 multiplied by 1/2, that equals 1 divided by 4. Therefore, this whole equation is getting multiplied by 1/2, so everything cancels out to be no solution. Therefore, the value of p needs to be a number that when I plug it in with 1/2 or multiply it, I should get negative 3, and that will be my answer. But our value p is not negative 3. So I figure out what value of p, when I plug it in, I'm going to get negative 3, and I'm going to get negative 3y to cancel out with positive 3y. And our answer is going to be indeed 6, because 6 divided by 2 is 3. And because we have a negative, I'm going to get negative 3, and negative 3 plus 3y will cancel out. But let's make sure that's true. If I multiply 1/2 to the second equation with everything, I'm going to get 1/4 x and then minus 3y, and our top equation of negative 1/4 x plus 3y. Everything cancels out, so the statement must be true, or statement isn't true. Therefore, my value of p equals positive 6. Let's look at this question. How many solutions does the given system of equations have? So I'm given two equations. I'm given negative 12x plus 14y equals 36, and I have negative 6x plus 7y equals negative 18. And I got to figure out how many solutions does this equations have. So I can do one of two things: plug it into Desmos or analyze it. In this case, we would want to analyze it to figure out what exactly is happening in this type of question. So let's see which values are the same. If I look at my x, right, they're getting multiplied by a number. And if I look at my y, they're getting multiplied by a number, which is ultimately 2. So if I do negative 6 multiplied by 2, I get negative 12. And if I do 7 multiplied by 2, under 7 multiplied by 2, I get 14. However, if we look at 36 and negative 18, if I do negative 18 multiplied by 2, I'm going to get negative 36, not positive 36. Therefore, because I have the same slopes but different numbers, I'm going to get 0. I'm ultimately going to get 0 plus a number, right? Because the slopes are the same, but the numbers are different. Therefore, I'm gonna have 0 points that are intersecting. But let's make sure that statement is true by plugging it into decimals and solving this algebraically. So for everything to cancel out, I'm gonna need to multiply this whole bottom equation with -2, which will give me positive 12x plus, or negative, sorry, or minus 14y, which equals positive 36. So the x's cancel out, the y's cancel out, and I'm left off with 36 plus 36, and that will give me 0 equals 72, and they cancel out, therefore my answer is D, but let's plug it into decimals to always make sure. So if I do negative 12x plus 14y equals 36, and the second equation of negative 6x plus 7y, which equals negative 18. As we can see, because they have the same slopes, they never intersect, and they have different numbers, so the answer is indeed D. This will be the last question for today. So I'm given y equals 4x plus 1 and 4y equals 15x minus 8. The solution to the given system of equations is x and y. What is the value of x minus y? This is the same thing as we did for the first equation. All I want to do now is just figure out my x and y, plug it in, and make sure it corresponds. And this is indeed decimals. So let's plug in our y, or let's figure out our two equations. I have y equals 4x plus 1, and then I have a single equation of 4y equals 15x minus 8. So what I can do to figure out my x value is just plug in y in the second equation to figure out my x value. So that'll be 4 multiplying 4x plus 1, which equals 15x minus 8. And if we multiply the left side, I'm going to get 16x plus 4, which equals 15x minus 8. If I subtract 15x on both sides, the x's cancel out on the right side. And on the left side, I'm going to get 1, or x by itself. And x plus 4 equals negative 8. If I subtract 4 on both sides, I'm going to get x equals negative 12. So x equals negative 12 is my x value. And if I plug it into the first equation to get y, I'm going to get y equals negative 48 plus 1, which equals y equals negative 47. And to look for my value of x minus y, I do negative 12 minus negative 47, and that'll give me my answer. Because anytime when you subtract a negative, it's going to equal positive. I'm going to get negative 12 plus 47, which equals 35. But let's plug into decimals to make sure those numbers do indeed correspond. So if I do y equals 4x plus 1, and then 4y equals 15x minus 8, these two are going to intersect at exactly 1 point, which will be roughly negative 12, negative 47, and I'm going to get negative 47 plus 47, which gives me 35, so 35 is my answer. This is the last question for today.